Hey everybody, he's Tony George, I'm Scott Spreitzer. 10 in 10, world's largest outdoor cocktail party. Plus we've got NFL. Man, the Patriots are at the Ravens. We're going to talk about all of that and 8 more games on 10 in 10. Before we get to all of that though, a quick note. If you've yet to take advantage and become a member at DocSports.com, what are you waiting for, man? $60 free account. You click on the link below the video, get yourself signed up for a free $60 account at DocSports.com. You can use those free $60 with anybody on the roster. Daily packages over at DocSports.com. Let's get to it. Tony George, Virginia at North Carolina. A little bit of ACC action. Heels won last week. We had Duke. We found the 3.5, and we eked in the victory with the Duke Blue Devils. Push for some, though. We understand that. These two are fighting for first place in the Coastal, Tony. Virginia's dropped 3 of their last 4. You know, I really thought if North Carolina was going to have a letdown, it would have been last week against Duke.
Right.
Boy, they just keep playing close, hard-fought games, well-coached by Mac Brown, and they don't seem to be getting worn out.
No, 7 out of their last 8 decided by 7 points or fewer. It's always a heart attack when it comes there. But I tell you what, for some reason here, with this number under 3, it looks attractive at North Carolina, but Virginia, I think, has the better team overall. They have the better quarterback. If you take a look at Howell, 10 out of 26 with 2 picks against Duke last week. Somehow they won.
Yeah.
And nonetheless here, this is for the Coastal Division lead right here, so this is a big game here. I kind of like the Cavs here a little bit. Not a free pick, but
listen,
I'm
every
reading
game's
Cavs,
close.
man. Perkins, I think he might have a good day against them. I think that Virginia defense might be too much.
Every North Carolina game seems to be a close one down
Oh,
there.
man. Non-stop. Oregon, USC. Is this going to be a close one?
Well, I don't know. Laying 5 here on the road.
I just tossed that right to you,
Well,
by the
see,
way.
I actually think we're going to see some points. And
Yeah.
you did toss it right to me, by the way.
Yes, I did.
But listen, I jotted down these notes. They're as low as 4.5 right now to the Trojans. Oregon 5 in a lot of books. 45, 30, 41, and 35. Those are the points that USC has put up on the scoreboard in 4 of their 5 Pac-12 games. I think they continue to score. I think Oregon's going to do some scoring of their own. There's good offensive talent on both sides of the football. This isn't Chip Kelly's Oregon Ducks, but they can still put up points. Clay Helton's getting the most out of his offense. He loses quarterback after quarterback after quarterback, and yet they're scoring points in the conference. I like the over here, Tony, and the total is 62.
Yeah, Slovis, 4 touchdown passes against Colorado.
Yep.
Looked good. And, of course, you watch the Oregon-Washington State game. They couldn't stop Washington State the entire game. It's total 62.5. I think this is going to, both teams are going to be in the 30s. This is going to be a nail-biter, no matter who you have on the side play.
Right.
But I tell you what, though, Helton has coached a little bit better this season than the seasons past. So, over the fall number of 3 there, kind of tasty for the home team.
It's getting up there, 4.5, 5. SMU at Memphis. If you would have told me a year ago at this time that at the end of October and starting into November, we'd be talking about SMU at Memphis as a 10 and 10.
Yeah.
I would have told you, maybe not, but these two teams have done quite well in their AAC conference race. And listen, I'm telling you what, Tony, you're looking at Memphis laying about 5.5 here. Listen, last week, if you bet the original number, at the circa, if you bet towards the original number, we've talked about this. Some of these numbers moving 3, 4, as much as 6 points.
Right.
If you bet last week back towards the opening number at circa, in other words, betting against the early bettors and going where the bookmakers set the price, you were sitting at 6-1 by the end of the day last Saturday in college football. And we're seeing this here. Circa opened Memphis a 3-point favorite. They're up to 5.5. Do we go and jump on SMU and continue to play towards the bookmakers number rather than when the bettors, where the bettors have moved it?
Well, I tell you what, I've rode SMU this year. I missed the total by a half a point last Friday night on the over. But that being said, the key here is, number one is Buselli's a great quarterback. He started in Texas. We all know the story there. Transferred down there. The question mark for SMU, and this line surprised me at first, their best offensive weapon outside of Buselli is out in this game. Robertson, their wide receiver, went down last week in that game on Friday night. And they don't know if he's going to play. If he plays, I would lean SMU here plus the points here. I think they somehow find a way to get it done. I have not been impressed with Memphis this year, beating up on a bunch of weak sisters. SMU's a real deal.
Absolutely.
Georgia, Florida, the world's largest cocktail party. This is going to be a marquee matchup here, but I will tell you something, Scott. We'll get into that on the marquee matchup.
Okay.
But at the end of the day here, you know what? The Georgia run game against that Florida defense is going to be very, very interesting.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. We'll also let you know that the last 5 meetings have not been close. Closest margin of victory, 14. They've been as much as 35, that margin of victory. More on that on the marquee matchup. Utah at Washington in the Pac-12. That Utah Ute defense does look for real. They're laying 3.5 on the road against the Huskies. They're going to look to stay atop the Pac-12 South with a win. I'll tell you what about the Washington Huskies. It's been a little bit rough. They lost that game to Cal where the lights went out. They had to delay the game for a couple of hours because of the bad weather. Well, they turned out the lights themselves for the most part on the field. They lost home field advantage in that particular game. Cal bit them in the rear end. And now you've got a situation where Washington is playing a spoiler. Dangerous spoiler here if the Washington Huskies. They have the weaponry on the field. They've got the coaching, but you got to be able to punch through that Utah defense, Tony. And right now, again, Utah laying 3.5 in this one.
Huntley hitting 73% of his passes this year, 10-to-1 ratio. They're getting it done on the ground, but he's more than serviceable. Matter of fact, he's except for the yardage, he's got better numbers than the Heisman Trophy Eason guy out of Washington. And the Utah defense is absolutely for real. Free play.
Oh, here we go.
Free play. Under 47 in this one.
Let's do it.
I see this as a defensive battle. I think Washington will come to play at home here, Scott, defensively. I don't think offensively they can match it, though. I think at the end of the day, this is going to be a great football game to watch. I could easily see this being a 21-17 ball game somewhere in that area. Under 47 is my free pick. Let's switch gears to the NFL. Texans taking on the Jaguars. Minshew Magic still alive and well. Minus J.J. Watt. You're out for the year. Curious to know, this was a real tight ball game the last time they played. I believe it was a 1-point game.
It was.
If I'm not mistaken. Low scoring game. Total here 47. Jags catching a couple early. I would not be a bit surprised to see this at near a pick'em by Sunday, Scott. But your thoughts on J.J. Watt and how that's going to affect that defense, because he is the leader.
I think long-term more than short-term. It's one of those situations where teams pick up for that star athlete, whether he be on offense or defense, for a game, and then you kind of see the attrition build in over the course of the next several weeks. So I think that's what it's going to affect more of a macro thing than a micro thing is basically what I'm trying to say here. So listen, last week, even before he got injured, they were giving up a ton of yardage to the Oakland Raiders. Oakland gained 7.1 yards per play against Houston at Houston. Now, one thing I don't like about Houston is that red zone offense. I don't like the play calling when they get inside the opponent's 20. This team should be scoring more points than it has. Saxonville, as they call them in Jacksonville, it's a situation when they're going to go up against this Houston offensive line, which has a lot of holes. And I'll tell you what, outside of playing against the poorest defenses of the Falcons and the Chiefs, that Texans offensive line has not been great at protecting Mr. Deshaun Watson. I think Jacksonville's going to get him here, Tony. They're getting 2, so you're not getting a lot of points there. It's in London. It's early, by the way. If you want to jump on this game, it goes at 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 a.m. Pacific.
And bear in mind, Jacksonville's had a lot of success playing over in London.
They're like London, or they're like Jackson.
Well, they shipped, they were so crappy for so long, they just kept shipping them over there.
I was like, what did we do? My gosh,
over there.
After all, we did win the war, right? And they kept sending Jacksonville over there like they beat us or something.
Exactly.
Anyway, the Bears at the Eagles. The Eagles 4.5 to 5-point favorite. Chicago has deep playoff, almost Super Bowl contending style of defense. They do get it done on the stop unit. The problem is that offense. It's Trubisky, it's the offensive line. The problem is I think Trubisky gets smacked around a little bit too much by the local media in Chicago, by the national media also. But I'm telling you what, right now, what he doesn't do is inspire confidence in the rest of the offense. That's a problem. Also, the play calling last week, bonehead coaching move number 1 was done last week by the Chicago Bears coaching. And when you watched Nagy in the post-game press conference, when he was asked, you had the ball at the 21-yard line of your opponent, you had 45 seconds to go, you had a couple of timeouts, and you knelt on the ball, ended up dealing yourself a 41-yard field goal attempt that was missed, you lost the game, why don't you at least try to run the football? You know what his answer was? In a nutshell, because if they know we're going to run, we're going to lose 3 or 4 yards. Well, you lost 2 yards kneeling on the ball, and also you gained over 160 rushing yards on the ground last week. Run the dang ball, man. It was a horrible coaching decision. And it is tough to back those teams when they make those kind of boneheaded moves.
Eagles laying 543. 2 things here. You look at coaching. Peterson is a vastly better coach than Nagy right now. He has no confidence in his quarterback. They're better off with Chase Daniel in there. But here's the red flag in this one, Scott. The Bills' defense is for real, and the Eagles on the
Bills or the
road.
Bears?
No, the Bills last week.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Because Philly put up 31 on the Bills on the road when they finally got their act together and they pulled their head out of their rear end. I think they do the same thing here against the Bears.
I'm glad you brought that up. I'm sorry to step on you when you were talking about what happened with Philly last week, because I wanted to mention this. We had the Eagles last week against the Bills, and one of the things that they did during the course of the game early on, Carson Wentz usually is in the shotgun, and against that defense, they moved him up under center for a good chunk of that game, and they just started pounding the ball between the tackles, and they found a way to be able to gain the yardage and get it done against a very good Bills team, as Tony mentioned. How about this one? Colts at the Steelers. Pick 'em, total 43, Tony.
Wow.
I'm going to tell you this.
What happened to
right
the
now.
Colts offense last week?
Well, the Colts offense was perfect for me because I had Denver.
Oh, I had the Colts.
So I was so happy.
Get out of here.
But Jacoby Brissett, man, what a great performance on that final touchdown-winning drive, especially the escape, the Houdini that he pulled inside his own 10-yard line late in the game. Check it out. YouTube it if you didn't see it. But here's the thing, man. Pittsburgh doesn't have an offensive identity without Big Ben. There's no doubt about it. And before picking up 3 sacks against Denver, when you talk about the Indy defense, Indy had recorded 3, 0, 1, and 0 sacks in their previous 4 games. I think because of Pittsburgh not having that identity, because the Colts are a little bit easier to prepare for as far as opposing defenses are concerned, I'm going to make this my free play. I think it's going to stay under the total of 43. Last week we had Tulane over Navy. We spotted Navy 24 points. We came all the way back. We cashed. This week it's the under in that particular game.
I'm not even going to say this out loud.
Okay, well, go for it.
No. My early lean was the over. I didn't win. I won 1 game in the NFL last Sunday. Listen to him on this one.
Well, you're due this week.
That's your free pick. I'll be due this week. Let's switch gears to the Packers and Chargers. The Chargers obviously got a gift handed to them in terms of a missed field goal, bad coaching. But they still did not look good. They're at home here. I wrote this down. Without a true home edge, they have failed to cover all 4 as hosts this year, and just 2 out of 11 in Carson. Let me tell you something. That was a heck of a game that Green Bay put together against Kansas City on Sunday night. This team finds ways to win. They are gelling offensively both through the air and on the ground. Their defense is playing better. They are a vastly better team than the Chargers, only laying 3. And here's the other thing you want to watch out for in this game, Scott. As you get closer to Sunday, word is Devontae Adams is going to return, and if he does, look the frick out. Here, I would really like Green Bay if that occurred. I still like Green Bay in this one.
I'm going to make it quick. I'm on the over. I'll lean towards the over.
There you go.
We'll decide by the weekend if we're going to be able to make that a premium pick. Devontae Adams is going to have a little bit to do with that, but a lean towards the over. I think you're going to see some points in this one. Marquee matchup, Tony. Patriots, of course, at the Ravens. Everybody's been complaining about New England's schedule. I would be too, except for the fact that they've got, half dozen Super Bowl rings. They beat teams whether they're good or bad for the most part. They might lose a couple of regular season games along the way. They don't win the Super Bowl every year, but they're always in contention. So I'm not too worried about the Patriots' so-called soft schedule. How about the Ravens and their soft schedule? They've played nobody. Their wins were against Miami, Arizona, and Pittsburgh, and Cincinnati. And their only real decent win came against Seattle, and that defense is questionable. Listen, here's the thing. This is our marquee game. I'm going to save it. Going to talk a little bit more about this. He's Tony George. I'm Scott Spreitzer. That's 10 and 10. Great and best of luck this week. Put them in the win column. We'll be right back here next week.